First one is about preparation. Okay, so the first thing we need to discuss is what score do you need in order to study abroad? And you'll see here, this question depends on several factors. The first one, of course, is what are you planning to study? So, for instance, if you're planning to take a foundation course, which is pre-university course, you probably need about 4.5. In order to do a bachelor's degree, a BA or a BSc, you're going to be looking at 6.5. For a postgraduate degree, you're also going to be looking at 6.5, and you'll need 6, probably in at least 6 in each of the 4 sections of the exam. Of course, this also depends on the university you're applying for. Some universities, because they are better known and they have better reputations, they might well ask for 7. Certain courses, so for example, things to do with medicine and psychotherapy and these kind of things, or maybe teaching English, might ask you for even higher, maybe even IELTS 8. Okay, so what's the average IELTS score in Taiwan? Well, it's basically this. For most students in Taiwan, the average is about 6 in the speaking exam, which is kind of okay, but you're going to need 6.5 overall. And that means basically to do that, you'll need 2 6.5s and 2 6s. But as you can see, well, most people don't get 6.5 in reading or listening, and definitely not in writing. So ideally what you should be doing is aiming for about 6.5 in speaking. Also, you really should be averaging for looking for 6.5 in listening. You need to be better than most other students. It's important that you get as high as you can, because it's actually pretty hard to get a high score in writing. Most students, it's very rare in Taiwan for a student to get more than 6.5 in writing, and most students looking for 6.5 are probably going to end up with 6 in this category. So it's really important that you do well in both listening and speaking. Okay, so how do I prepare for the IELTS speaking exam? Okay, well, the first thing, of course, is improve your English ability. On this course, I can help you to prepare for your listening and speaking exam, but if your English is bad, I can only help you to do a little bit better at a bad score. So IELTS is not a test of vocabulary, it's not a test of grammar, it's not something you can just memorize like the TOEIC test. It's really a test of your overall ability. If your English is poor, you will not be able to get a good score, no matter how many tips are given to you. But if your English is good, well, we can help you to bring up your score. Specifically, of course, you need to improve your speaking and listening abilities. Importantly, you need to learn to think and speak in English. One of the reasons most people average about 6 in the speaking exam is because they think in Chinese and then they translate into English. And if that's the case, you will find it very, very, very difficult to get higher than that. Also, this is one of the keys to listening as well. The more time you spend translating, the more information gets lost, the more mistakes come into your speaking and writing, but also into your comprehension in reading and listening. So it's important that you learn how to think in English, not just to speak English. Also, you need to know what the test is, so that you know how to answer the questions. You're prepared for whatever is thrown at you. Importantly, we also need to do these 3 things. So practice, so that we become better, but also to monitor. Don't just practice, actually observe what you're doing. One of the problems sometimes is people do something wrong and they practice, and what they're practicing is doing something wrong, and then they never improve. And the longer you practice something that is wrong, the harder it will be to change. So it's about practicing, but also observing what you're doing, figuring out what you're doing wrong, and then changing if need be. And next, we need to prepare physically and psychologically for the exam. You need to be healthy both in body and in mind. Okay, so how to improve our IELTS speaking? Okay, so the first thing is we need to figure out how the exam is scored. So make sure that we give the examiner what they want. Okay, and there are several things here. The first one is about fluency and cohesion. So fluency means the ability to start speaking and compete, and continue to speak without having to stop and think too much, and without too many and so on. And this again is one of the reasons it's important to think in English. If you have to translate, you'll never be fluent. The second part is about cohesion. Cohesion means how the different ideas combine together. So basically, your first sentence needs to connect to your second sentence. They need to logically connect together. They need to feel like they belong together. So this is kind of about the organization of your answers. The next thing they're looking for are lexical resources. Lexical resources is a very, very fancy way to say vocabulary. Okay, so can you use a variety of words, both short words and long words, simple words and long words? Can you use idiom? Can you use more formal academic language? They'll be looking at grammatical range and accuracy. So again, can you use simple grammatical sentences? Can you use more complex grammatical sentences? And importantly, can you use a variety of them so that you're not using the same sentence pattern every single answer? And finally, it's talking about pronunciation, how you actually speak. This is not about your accent. This is not about whether you have an English accent like myself, or maybe a posher English accent like this, or maybe an accent from London, or maybe you have an Australian accent or an American accent. They don't care. Pronunciation is about speaking clearly, and that means breathing deeply. It means speaking loudly. It means opening your mouth. But it's also about the rhythm in which you speak. English is a rhythmic language. So some sounds are short, some sounds are longer. We will talk about this in more detail during this course. Okay, so the most important thing is this. You need to speak to communicate. Okay, so they don't have a tick box. They give you 5 points for this and 7 points for that. That's not how it works. They'll be looking at all of these things together. They want to say, are you an effective communicator? Can I understand this person? Are what they're saying clear? and they show a variety of language that can be used in lots of different situations, whether it's from going to 7-Eleven to buy a coffee, to talking to a professor about your dissertation. Okay, and the final point is about learning to perform. Unfortunately, a speaking exam is a kind of performance. You'll be nervous, and it's important to be able to do your best. It's a kind of acting. It doesn't show here, but I'm actually pretty shy. But what I'm doing now is I'm performing to you. And, well, you need to learn to perform so that when you get into the exam, you shine. The examiner sees your best English, not your worst English. Okay, so how about improving your listening? Okay, so the first thing you need to do is learn how the exam is structured. What is it they're going to give to you, and what do they expect from you? One of the important things in the IELTS exam is that you actually see the questions before you listen. So the first thing we need to do is actually preview the questions, figure out what it is you need to listen for. Then you also need to organize your time. They will give you some time to preview questions. They will also give you times to check your answers. And what you can do, instead of checking your answers, you can start looking at the next set of questions so that you actually have more time to preview. Previewing is really, really important. Another thing is learning to read the instructions so that you make sure that you answer in the way that they want. So if they say one word, you give them one word. If they say no more than 2 words, you give them 1 word or 2 words, not 3 words, and so on and so on. Because if you get that wrong, your answer will be wrong. Next is about learning to listen for details, and this is why we need to preview the questions. Figure out, what do you need to listen for? Are you listening for a noun, a verb, an adjective? If it's a noun, are we listening for maybe an animal, a type of food, a number, and so on? Also, you need to understand the main ideas, particularly multiple choice answers. They will usually answer, they will also usually talk about all 3 answers, but only one of them answers the real question. So you need to be able to understand not just the detail, but the overall meaning of the conversation. Also, you need to use shorthand. What I mean by that, instead of, because you get 10 minutes at the end of the exam, and you don't necessarily need to write the whole word when you're listening. So, for example, if they say 3 minutes, you can write 3 min, M-I-N. When you write your answer, you must write minutes. But when you're actually just during the actual listening part, you don't have to use the full word. The problem with writing is you stop listening. So sometimes it's very useful to use shorthand. And then finally, you need to learn to concentrate. So you're going to be listening for about 30 minutes. You know, in the classroom, you can take a sleep, you can look at your phone for a minute and then refocus. Here, if you miss an answer, you will miss the answer. It's very different from the kind of tests you did in school where your listening passage is 30 seconds. These could be 4 or even 5 minutes long. And this is an exam. It just keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps going. So you need to be able to listen for extended periods. One great way to do is watch TV. Actually, you don't necessarily need to study for IELTS in order to improve your exam abilities. Okay, so the next one is talking about content. Okay, so what text will we be using? Well, we're actually going to be using original material prepared prepared specifically for this course, but this material is based on past exam questions and exam topics. So you'll be getting things very similar to what you will get in the real test, and it's been prepared to give you the best preparation. And we will have typical topics, typical questions, typical listening passages. What will we actually learn? Okay, so importantly, we will learn communication first. Whether you're writing or speaking, the purpose of a language is to communicate, and IELTS is testing your ability to communicate. So first on, it's not about memorizing answers, it's not about memorizing formula or patterns, it's about learning to communicate, to let other people know what it is you think and feel and believe. Also, we will start from the basics, and then we will develop our answers. If you can't give a short answer, you won't be able to give a long answer. So learning to give good grammatical sentences, to use good, simple language. And then, we can learn how to give longer answers and more complex sentences and more complex words. A good speaker uses both. If you listen to what I'm saying to you today, you'll find I use short sentences, I use short words. I also use longer grammatical structures and more complex vocabulary and lexical resources. Good speakers, good writers can do both. We will also be looking at lots and lots and lots and lots of examples, and I will give you lots and lots and lots of examples on the speaking exam. So different ways that we can answer the same question, and you will also have chance to practice this too. For section 2, for part 2 of the speaking exam, I will also tell you how to tell a story, to have a beginning, a middle, have an end. It's just what I'm doing here today. So we had a beginning, we're getting towards the end now. It's really important to be able to do this. Also, we will talk about tenses. Unfortunately, in English, past tense, future tense, present continuous tense, and so on are really, really important. If you don't use them, you will never get more than IELTS 5, even if everything else is brilliant. So learning to notice these things, when should I use it, how should I use it, are really, really fundamental. And finally, about building confidence, so that you are sure of your ability, and that you know that when you get into the exam, you can perform to your best, whether it's in the reading exam, the listening exam, the speaking exam, or the writing part of this. Knowing exactly what's going to happen, what you need to do, and know that you can control any nervousness or so on that you will have. This is also a very important thing, and we'll be looking at how to actually make sure that we can perform on the day. Okay, so thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you on the course. So thank you.